Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 570, written by noodleq. I am Pisces, Lord of Water. Me and a friend were hanging out on a hot summer day at this little waterway that drains into a large river. I sometimes go there when it's hot, and I put my feet in the water because it's cold and it feels refreshing. My friend, although very spiritual, believes in a whole bunch of stuff, including flat earth, which I don't believe in at all, but I like to pick his brain on things just to try and understand his perspective. Anyways, on this day he was going on about how I am God, you are God, we all create our own universe and reality. I was entertained by the thought of this, as I sat there with the quarter-inch deep water just barely running over the bottom of my feet. But still not deep, it felt good as it was cold water on that hot summer day. Anyways, after a while of my friend explaining all of this create-your-own-reality stuff, I decided to humor him for a moment. I was like, okay, so if what you're saying is true, then I can right now command the water levels to just rise, and they will? To which he said, sure, anything is possible. You just have to believe it and see. So I look upstream, put my arms out, and all dead serious say out loud something like, I command you, water, to rush forth. Sort of half serious, but also trying to actually visualize and believe it. We stand there in silence for maybe 30 seconds. Then I give up, saying, yeah, okay, that didn't work, surprisingly. Then, after another minute or two passed, the water went from quarter-inch deep maximum and started rushing heavily until it was closer to 6 inches deep, up to my ankles, rushing fast. Like I had to sit down at the edge because I was worried I would slip. I looked over at my friend like, what the hell? And he was just like, I told you so. I'm still not sure what could have possibly happened right then. In any explainable logical way, I've run through many possible scenarios that just still don't add up. I've never seen the water levels change like that before or since, and I haven't tried doing that type of thing again because it really did threaten to shatter my understanding of everything, which may sound cool, but could also possibly drive me insane. To my flat earth friend, that was just normal stuff, but to me, it really made me wonder, how much control do we actually have over our reality? Is reality that easily malleable? Or maybe, since I'm a Pisces, water sign, I have some connection with just water itself? Maybe in my subconscious, I heard a rush of water a mile away when I decided to try and summon it and just tricked myself? I don't think I'll ever know, but it's certainly some food for thought. Case notes, file number 570. Avatar the Waterbender. Impressive. But this is a fun brain teaser in seriousness. There are possible mundane explanations. As you mentioned, our subconscious can pick up on minutiae and details in our environment that aren't passed down through the filter to our conscious experience. Our brains are constantly filtering out so much information, vastly more than we get to experience. Which, by the way, is a very good thing, because there's far too much data to process. Some people actually have a condition where they have no filter, or they have a limited filter, and they typically go insane as a result. Anyways, maybe your brain did pick up on sound cues from far away, or maybe you had read something about a spillway opening up and forgot about it, but inside your subconscious knew when they were going to open it to raise the water levels. Or hell, maybe you really did command the water levels to rise. In that case, did the universe physically materialize more water? Or did you divert a stream up ahead? It did take a few minutes for the stream level to rise, so probably the latter if it was a command received by the universe. Next time, of course, wish for more money, or at least food. Case file number 571, written by Menace17. Racing to my inevitable death. All across the country, there are local short tracks like the ovals you see in NASCAR where people can race several different kinds of cars every week. I've always loved NASCAR and my goal is to race at Daytona one day. Ever since I was 11, I've been racing at a local racetrack in Florida and sometimes at other short tracks around the state when there are big races going on. Right now, I race what are known as super late models, which is the closest you can get to an actual NASCAR race car. Over the years, I've gotten to be a pretty good driver, usually winning multiple times per year. This is gonna sound off topic, but until September of last year, I never believed in the supernatural. But then something very unusual happened that made me reconsider my future as a racer. It was a beautiful Saturday night, and I was getting ready for a big 200-lap race that over 30 other drivers were going to be in. I was going to start in third place, but about half an hour before the race, something in my gut told me not to get into the car. But when you're a race car driver, you get used to being nervous and just have to suck it up and deal with it. This time was different though. I had this nagging feeling that something terrible was going to happen if I got into the car. Even though I couldn't shake the feeling, I still got into my car. And by the time the green flag waved and the race started, I had kind of forgotten about it. About 10 laps in, 2 cars spun behind me and hit the inside wall. The caution flag flew, signaling for all the drivers to slow down and follow the pace car as the wreck was cleaned up. The feeling came back. This time, however, it made me feel physically sick and I couldn't race feeling the way I did. So I went through the opening in the turn 1 wall that led to the parking lot where all the race teams worked on their cars. I threw up as soon as I undid my belts and climbed out of my car, and me and my crew packed up and headed home. My friend Pete drove me home as I laid back in the passenger seat, trying to get some rest. The next thing I knew, I was hovering over the racetrack, watching as the cars battled for position, inches apart, trying to make as much ground as they could. As I looked down on the track, one of the cars caught my eye. A familiar white and red car running in 9th place, with a black number 62 on the sides of the car and on the roof. It was my car. I remember being confused and flying down to the ground to get a better view, and I landed in the infield in turn 1, watching myself racing to stay in the top 10. About 5 laps went by before the unthinkable happened. My car, that was being driven by me, launched off the side of another car as me and the driver next to me battled for position. I watched as my car slid into the opening in the turn 1 wall at over 100 miles per hour, hitting the driver's side first. The hit was so hard that it ripped my car in half and tore everything below my hips off. The back half of my car, with me still in the seat, slid back down onto the track as I listened to myself screaming in agony. The other drivers swerved, trying to avoid the 2 pieces of my car, but one driver hit me head on, ripping even more off the part of the car I was in and putting me out of my misery. I watched as my head, ribs, lungs, guts, and other organs and pieces of my bones and skin went flying all over the track, some into the stands where people were watching. A few drivers spun in puddles of my blood as they went by. This description doesn't do justice to what I saw. I looked at the terrible scene for a few seconds and everything went black. I opened my eyes to find myself back in the reclined passenger seat of Pete's pickup truck, where I fell asleep trying to make myself feel better. Luckily I did, and I woke up just as we got back to my house. I thanked him and headed in. As horrifying as it was at the time, I wasn't gonna let it bother me. Race car drivers sometimes think about fatal crashes as a possibility, but we accept the danger. You have to accept it whenever you do anything dangerous. The next day, I woke up at around 9:30, and after I had breakfast, brushed my teeth, and did everything else you'd expect someone to do in the morning, I went out to my garage where I kept the race car. I was about to get to work, preparing it for next week's race, when I noticed something that made me crap myself, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that. There was a massive dent in the driver's side of the car right about where I hit the wall in that dream. That freaking dream. I looked inside the car where I saw that there was a huge crack going down the roll cage. At that moment, I wondered if I should ever race again. Like I said before, I have never believed in ghosts or spirits or anything paranormal or supernatural. But after I had that terrible dream and saw my car the next day, I started to wonder about a lot of things. Why did I feel a really strong urge to not race that night? Why did I get sick when I tried to? How did my mind paint such a vivid, messed up image in that dream? And lastly, what if it wasn't a dream? What if I really did die in an alternate universe and that dream was a glimpse into it? If I hadn't have gotten sick in my car that night, would I have lived to race another day? Would everyone that was there be forever traumatized by the sight of my dismembered body flying everywhere? If it was just a bad dream, why did my car have damage in the same place I wrecked it in the dream, even though I didn't wreck it in real life? I'm a believer now. Something was at work that night that I think kept me alive, and somehow I feel like I would have died a horrible death if it wasn't. I feel lucky to still be racing today, but it's terrifying to think about things like this. Case file number 572, written by Reddit user 238, a miracle ID. My whole life, my mom has told me to pray to Saint Anthony to find things. Dear Saint Anthony, please look around for my item. It must be found. And I can't remember a time it has failed, but the skeptic in me also has reason that the items would have come up at some point without Saint Anthony's help. My mind changed today. About 2 weeks ago, I was pulled over for speeding, and I guess when the officer gave me back my license, I didn't put it back in my wallet, which is uncharacteristic of me to do. I've been searching everywhere. I turned the car upside down, ripping up the floor mats and taking everything out. This ID was not in the car. After almost 2 weeks of searching for it, I began to feel anxious because I'm going on a flight and will need it to travel a week from now, and I wouldn't have enough time to order a new one. Yesterday, I thought I would flip my car upside down one more time and nothing. But the whole time, I was praying to Saint Anthony. The next morning, today, I kid you not, my ID was just laying on the passenger side floor. There is simply no explanation. Thank you, dear Saint Anthony. I am now undoubtedly a believer.